This Islamic sect, Boko Haram, is what many are calling responsible for this spate of attacks that we're seeing. Bombings in Abuja, obviously, is the main one, which you saw last week. First of all, tell us more about Boko Haram.
Well, Boko Haram means, it literally means the Western education, Western books are sinful. So it rejects Western civilization. Evidently, the group was started in the northeast of Nigeria, around Maiduguri, around the 2002. It seems to have gotten involved with some politicians at its inception. I think the more devious actions are those after it's falling out with some politicians who used to use them to get popularity with the people. They reject the Western constitution, the Nigerian constitution, and evidently want a more Islamic ordering of society.
How much of a threat would you rate these bombings to general insecurity across the country? Obviously, the bombings have been focused on the north, but there are fears that it could escalate.
My suspicion, given the scope of operations of the new Boko Haram, I would make a demarcation between the old Boko Haram and the new Boko Haram. The new Boko Haram is more sophisticated. It's handling explosives, it's handling bombs, is extending its operations beyond the Maiduguri, Bauchi, Gombe area. My suspicion is that it is gotten more involved with people with military, intelligence, and such competencies. And therefore, it's a more dangerous entity. It has launched an audacious operation in Abuja, could easily launch an operation in Lagos or anywhere else in the country if it thinks that that would get it the attention it requires. So yeah, it's evidently not as dangerous as oil. I mean, attacking oil installations in Port Harcourt, which strikes directly at the heart of the economy, but strikes at the confidence in the economy, security, and all the same.
So how concerned are you about escalation? Because obviously, like I mentioned, it's focused on the north right now. There are fears that it might escalate and move across the country.
I would not rule it out. Like I said, given it used to be restricted around Borno, Maiduguri, Gombe, Bauchi. It has struck in Katsina. It has struck in Niger State. It has struck now in Abuja. It could strike in Lagos. There's nothing that precludes it. And it has made threats to that effect that it could strike anywhere around the country, including Abuja. And
for me, one interesting thing about many of these attacks on oil installations, bombings, etc., is that Lagos has been pretty much out of it. The commercial capital has been
because the former agitation in the Niger Delta was centered around oil, which is not the economy of Lagos. But remember, we had an attack on Atlas Cove when even the militants, well, purportedly from the Niger Delta, wanted to get more attention, and they felt that they needed to go to Abuja and Lagos, and they started from Lagos. And they had the Atlas Cove incident in which some naval officers died.
Indeed.
So anyone, given their, obviously the intent of Boko Haram is to disrupt and to disrupt the system, to demonstrate that it's unhappy with the system, and to call as much attention as possible to itself. And therefore, we should not rule out the fact that it could choose to strike elsewhere in Nigeria.
Obviously, like you mentioned, the attacks on the oil installations had economic implications. We have seen less of that so far with these attacks. Perhaps maybe perceptions of Nigeria risk might be elevated as a result. But overall, what would you say to investors looking into Nigeria given this trend?
Well, it's not yet something a generalized investor, an investor would worry too much about. It's more something you would worry about if you were concerned with the spread of Al-Qaeda, if you were concerned with the spread of fundamentalism, if you were concerned more with long-term prospects for peace and security in Nigeria. But in terms of a direct threat to business, it's not a threat here and now. The northern parts where Boko Haram is most influential are not the immediate centers where investors may want to be interested in. Nevertheless, the prospects and the outlook for an escalation and for it to become a threat to national security that could consume the whole nation is what the investor will have to factor into.
So not too worried, but just keep an eye on this.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you so much for your thoughts.